Hi folks, it's Dr. Tim Kitchen here again for another weekly webinar from the Adobe Education team, and I'm very pleased to have my two colleagues with me today. We'll get Molly and James to put their cameras on to say hello. Hi Molly, how are you going?
Hello Tim, and hello everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
Good. Molly's going to be monitoring the chat for anyone who's there with us live at the moment. Just if you've got any questions, Molly will be able to help. And James, you may not have met James before. Quick little intro to James. James, tell us a bit about your background and when did you start with Adobe?
I'm pretty fresh. I've been with Adobe for just coming on a month today, which is super exciting. My background is primary, the land of primary, so spent a lot of time at the Department of Education and just keen to get some of that Adobe magic working.
Terrific. All right, we're going to be presenting. Let me just share my screen now. I'm just going to jump into screen and we'll get it into presenter mode, because as you know, Adobe Express does a full slide presentation option for you. It's called Linking Adobe Express with Photoshop for Busy Teachers. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be jumping into Express, into Photoshop, doing a bit of a comparison between the two with various operations. But before we get started into that, let's have the official start to our webinar. Thank you for joining this weekly webinar series from the ANZ Adobe Education team. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we gather and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We honour the wisdom, knowledge and artistic expressions that Indigenous communities have shared with the world. Their contributions to the arts and education continue to inspire and enrich our lives. Through creativity and education, we strive to build a future where all voices are heard and celebrated. Whether you're just getting started or looking to deepen your skills, these sessions aim to provide hands-on tips, classroom examples, and expert insights to help teachers make the most of Adobe's powerful creativity tools. We're a little bit excited because today we've been watching, a lot of us in this part of the world in Australia have been watching the Adobe Max keynote that happened yesterday in Los Angeles. Pretty amazing. In fact, it's just finished literally 5 minutes ago. So I didn't catch the last part of it, but the first half just blew me away. In fact, James and I were chatting on Teams during it. And I think I said, James, how many times can a mind be blown in just one day? And it was just incredible. In fact, James, I'm going to put you on the spot. What was a highlight for you?
Well, I love all of the stuff coming on Express, but I think one of the highlights for me actually came from a different app in Photoshop and the way it's connected to AI these days. I've been dabbling in Photoshop more recently, and it's just seeing what's coming has just made, I guess, options open up for that creative flow to get ideas out from Firefly into tweaking them and fine-tuning them. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. What about you, Molly? How much did you get a chance to see much of it?
Yeah, a lot of it actually. And I'm with you, Tim. My mind was being blown every kind of 5 minutes. I'm really enjoying the new Firefly space, and it's almost like that hub for creativity where everything is sort of linking in and talking to each other throughout our different programs like Express and Photoshop. And what I really loved is that key message around it's not taking anything away from the creatives, it's actually really enhancing their workflows and allowing them to make, creations on scale and do things that they ordinarily wouldn't do because it would have just taken them months and months to do. So I can't wait to see particularly video out there as a consumer and just see all the exciting stuff that the creators do with this new updates that we've got. So wrap around it if you haven't sort of checked in, have a look.
Good. And make sure you take note of Firefly boards. New feature, new thing, amazing design tool for video, but also for image creation, for Gen AI. It's just incredible. It's almost unlimited what you can create with it. And oh look, there's so many highlights. I'm not going to go into it now because next week we have got a special webinar at this very time, which will be a recap of Adobe Max for educators. And Molly and Al will be looking after that. I'll be traveling, so I'm going to try and beam in if I can, but I'll probably be at a school, or just finishing at a school at that particular time. So looking forward to getting that recap. So please come and join us for that webinar. Those of you watching the recordings, join us live so you can be part of the conversation if you're able to. Now, quick quiz. Go to the chat, folks. Those people who are with us live. In what year was Adobe founded? Was it A, 1982, B, 1992, C, 2002? Looking at the chat, let's see who has got a response straight away. Molly's saying A, but Molly, we're looking for people who are guests. So
I
you're
know,
working
but
for
I
Adobe.
feel like I'm
should
actually
know
this. Is
this.
the guest of it. I should.
You should know this. Now,
Hopefully,
Julianne, you're
hopefully I'm
saying
right.
A. Let's see if you're right. You are absolutely right, Molly, and Julie, who was it? Julianne. Well done, Julianne. I'm just looking for my special effects here to give you a round of applause. Well done. There we go. You got that right. All right, just a couple more questions just to round things up. Approximately how many Adobe applications have been invented? A little bit more of a tricky question because a lot of people would not necessarily know the answer to this. And Julie's saying C. Ben's saying C. Well, let's see if they're right. Absolutely right. Well done, Julie and Ben. Nice work. Over 100 applications in fact last time I checked. There was close to 120 applications that have had the Adobe logo branded with it. They're not all there today. They've come and gone, a lot of them, but it's just an amazing company with so many different tools. Let's jump into the next one. True or false? Adobe invented the PDF file format. Is that true or is that false? Let's see who has got the very first answer. See if they're right. Julianne is saying true. Tim Cosgrove is saying true. Let's see if they're right. They're absolutely right. Give them a round of applause. Nice work. We did invent that. When did Adobe launch Adobe Acrobat though, and then revolutionize document management? Was it the same time as when they invented the PDF format, or was it later? Was it A, 82, B, 93, or was it 2006? Not getting any answers at the moment. Have a guess. Tim Cosgrove reckons it's B, and Ben reckons it was 93, which is also B. Let's see if they're right. David thinks it's A. Is it? No, I've just skipped all that. David thinks it's no. Let's have a look. It was 1993. Well done, those people. Got that right. Well done. So there was kind of a 10-year gap there between when we invented the concept of the PDF and PostScript before we launched Acrobat to the world, and then Adobe just went from strength to strength at that time. So we're looking at linking Adobe Express with Photoshop for busy teachers. And what I'd like to do is just do a bit of a comparison, show you some things you can do in Express that you can also do in Photoshop, show the links between Photoshop and Express. Show you some things that you can't do in Express, but you can do in Photoshop. I'm conscious that we actually have with us live an absolute guru when it comes to Photoshop, Ben Eyles. Hello, Ben. Put your microphone on, Ben. Say hello.
That's kind of you. Hello.
You put your camera on too, if you like, mate. And there might be some things you might want to share that you've picked up. One thing, Ben, I know you've done this because on your YouTube show with Erin Raithke that I've mentioned on a few occasions now, Create, Share, Learn. Yeah, wonderful show. You often have lots of Photoshop tips and tricks. And what I've noticed, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, there's usually more than one way to do something. So when I show a way of doing something, you'll probably come up with another way of doing it. It doesn't mean one of us is wrong or one of us is right. That's one of the beauties of using Photoshop. How often would you open up Photoshop on a daily basis, Ben Eyles?
It'd be rarer that I close it. Start on login on all my computers, basically. Yeah, sometimes I have the beta and the regular running at the same time.
And when are you going to download Photoshop 2026, which has just come out?
Well, because I've been watching Max, I've just hit update on them, and I'm waiting for them to trickle down. So
there you go. You'll have it before I will.
That's it. As long as you don't have any high school certificate work or exam work, wait for your update just then, just in case.
Absolutely. So we're going to jump into Express and Photoshop, and I'm going to encourage you, those who are with us live and those watching the recording, to open up Express and then open up Photoshop at the same time if you have it. I know many of you don't have Photoshop necessarily, and that's one of the beauties of having Express, because there's so many things you can do in Express that are regular things that you do in Photoshop. And here's the thing, here's the big announcement, not announcement, here's the big message for you. The same algorithms or technology that's behind Photoshop is behind certain aspects of Adobe Express. And I'm just going to mention that several times just to show you that's a good reason to be using Express over other tools that do similar sorts of things, because it's using the amazing technology of Adobe's professional tools, but within a very simple framework. So let's jump into it. I'm going to open up Adobe Express now, and I'm using the K-12 version. And I'll show those of you who are not K-12 teachers how to get into different things as well. But I love the K-12 version, just the fact that everything that a school teacher or school student would be wanting to access is there straight away as these little tiles. And what I'd like you to do right now for us, if you're able to with us, is we're just going to create a poster. We'll go into the poster side. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to get an image from Adobe Stock. And of course, Adobe Express links directly with Adobe Stock through the media tool. Now, those of you who are not in the K-12, you would have realized change happened in the last week and you don't have that media button like the K-12 people do. You have to go up the top of the toolbar and there is a add content button, and then you'll find the media tool within there. So we're going to find that media tool, and this gives you access to Adobe Stock, and look for photos. And I'm just going to do a search for a teacher. And I'm just looking for a picture of a teacher in Adobe Stock that I think I'll just grab this one here. It's a nice smiling teacher. And because this is a landscape picture, I'm just going to spread it out. And I'm thinking I don't want all the extra borders around it. So I'm going to resize my document. I'm going to go up to the resize button at the top left-hand corner up here. And I'm just going to make this more of a landscape type. So I'm going to change it from millimeters to pixels, and I'm thinking 1280 by 960 might be a good option. So notice how when I do that in Express, it uses a bit of AI to readjust everything. And hopefully, if it works properly, my picture will fill up in the screen as well, or as much as it can, that's okay. So I'm just going to just make that a little bit bigger so we can see a fair bit of this image. So now that I've got that picture sitting in here, I want to do some Photoshop type things with this particular picture. First thing I want to do is I want to add some content. I want to add a layer to this picture. And I'm thinking, Molly, that this teacher needs a bow in her hair. So Molly, open up your microphone. You're going to help me with this one. Open up your mic and your camera. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the picture itself. And on the left-hand side, you can see some very simple tools. And one of them is Insert Object. I'm going to click on Insert Object, and I'm going to add a description. This is where you're going to help me, Molly. What color is this bow going to be?
I'm a matchy person, so I'm definitely going to go for the yellow, the lemon of her jumper. So I want a big lemon.
A lemon.
No, definitely. I reckon lemon. Let's have a look at either yellow lemon or lemon. Well, let's not confuse it. Let's just do yellow. Let's try not to get a big lemon on top of her head.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably what will happen. A yellow bow or a yellow hair bow? What do you think would be a better prompt?
I think, I'd be putting a... Well, actually, let's have a look at the bow just first of all, because I think that it does know that. It's quite clever.
Now, notice I've got a brush size option. At the moment, it's probably quite suitable, that size, but I can adjust it. I can make it smaller or bigger, depending on the detail that I want or the size. I'm just going to literally choose where I want that bow to appear, and then I'm going to click Insert. Now, this is using the power of Adobe Firefly to bring in that layer, that extra object. And any second now, we should see a few different options. The first of 4 options will appear on the stage. There we go. And we've got 3 options. So I've got option 1, option 2, option 3, and I can generate some more if I wanted to, but for the sake of time, Molly, which one do you like best?
I like option 2.
Option 2, there we go. So that's a pretty cool feature. Now we can do something very similar to this in Photoshop as well. Now, before we go any further, I'm actually going to discard that for the moment, and we'll bring it back a bit later, because I just realized what I need to do first of all, I'm going to close that feature, is I want to export this picture so that I can then open it up in Photoshop, if that makes sense. I want to export a fairly high resolution version of this picture. So I'm going to jump up to the download button up the top here, click download, and we've got PNG, we've got JPEG, we've got PDF. Now in the chat, which of those file formats is going to be the best if I want a reasonably high res one, high res that I can then manipulate in Photoshop? Which of these 3 options do you think would be the best approach? Molly is typing away. LMK, if anyone is not in the K-12 Express, I can help with this.
Sorry, I was just talking to the crowd.
Oh, okay, there you go. No, that's all right, that's fine. Now, Tim Cosgrove reckons PNG, and so does everyone else, and they're absolutely spot on. PNG file will give me a really good resolution, but notice I can also adjust the resolution. At the moment, it's going to give me a 1280 by 956, which is pretty much the res that I'm working with here. If I did scale that up, it's going to start being a bit blurry, so I don't want to scale it up. Mind you, if you do watch Adobe Max, brand new feature in Photoshop 2026, to scale up. Mind blown! Like, whoa, you got a low res image, you can actually make it into a high res image, which we've never really been able to do before. In the new version of Photoshop, you will. That's just amazing. So I'm going to quickly download that. Now that's going to be in my downloads folder. I'm going to bring in Photoshop, and I'm going to go and open up that photo in Photoshop. Going to my downloads, it's just called Untitled 5, and there it is sitting in Photoshop. So now that I've got it in Photoshop, I'm just going to move it to the side, and I'm going to get that hair bow back in. So in case you didn't remember how to do this, all you need to do is click on the picture and it brings up some tools for you. And I selected this insert object tool, and it was a yellow bow, wasn't it, Molly? A yellow bow. And the brush size was about there, and then click insert and we'll bring that in. Now while that's going, because we saw that working before, I'm going to show you the same process but in Photoshop, and let's just see what sort of result it does. In Photoshop, we've got the picture there. What we need to do now is we need to go to the lasso tool over on the top left. You can see all these amazing tools in Photoshop. It does get a bit confusing, but this lasso tool is pretty cool. And if you can't see the lasso tool, click on the little arrow next to the 3rd tool from the top, and you'll see there's a bunch of lasso tools. And the one we're doing is just the standard normal lasso tool. So you might find you're already in the magnetic lasso tool, for example. So just change that to the lasso tool. Come on. It's not working for me, Ben. What's going on? There we go.
Try it. Yeah, try a hold down click.
Good, I think that worked. So what we do with the lasso tool is then we select the area where we want the bow or the object, second object to appear, and we get this floating toolbar. And this is where we can add our prompt and add our firefly. So I'm going to say a yellow bow, make it a bow, and then click generate. It takes usually between 10 and 15 seconds, and then you'll get 3 options to work with. Starting to generate, it's going into Adobe Firefly, it's looking at all the different bows and the colors and the yellows and bringing it all in, and any second now we can see the first of the 3 options appears. I'll just move this floating toolbar out of the way so you can see it a bit better. Not so happy with that one. Then I can click on the little arrow, and there's my second option, and there's my 3rd. Molly, do you like the 3rd one?
Oh.
Just
muting and unmuting. I know you always do in these sessions. I love it.
You do? Good, because the second one's okay. The first one was a bit of a failure, I thought. So we're going to stick with this one. And you can see, if I move that across, and you can see the difference, that's the bow that was selected in Adobe Express, and that's the bow that was selected in Adobe Photoshop. There's so many different bows in Adobe Stock, it'll just randomly choose one that it thinks is appropriate. And if you're not happy, you can just regenerate. Now, the next thing we're going to do is I want to add some, I reckon, I really like the hair that's here. I'm going to keep that bow. I'm back in Express. Whoops, I'll close that. Good. I'm back in Express and I'm just going to zoom in on this picture. At the moment, I'm on 76%, so I'm just going to zoom in, and we've got a few control equals, looks like option equals on a Mac will allow me to zoom in. And I'm starting to lose a bit of res there, so I'll just zoom out a little bit. I want to put a bee's nest in her hair, because that hair just looks like it needs to have a bee's nest in there. So I'm going to go through that process. Click Insert Object, grab the brush size, I'll make it a little bit smaller, and just drag where I want the nest to appear, and then type in a bee nest with bees flying around. Click Insert and give that a few seconds, and I'll do the same over here with Photoshop. And this process again, grab the lasso tool, select the region where you want the nest to appear, and then put it in here. A bee nest with bees flying around. Generate that, give that a few seconds. All right, you can see my bee nest has appeared, and that's still generating in Photoshop, but I can't see the bees flying around, so I might have to, or they're very, very hard to see, so I might have to just go to another option, see if we get more bees. Getting a few bees there, that's probably a better option. Or if I had more time, I'd go in and just type in I want some bees to appear. And if I click Keep, we can see how that's working. And if I jump over to Adobe Photoshop, you can see it's just created a bee. It's interesting. Let's go to, that's a better option. Maybe that second one is looking better. All right, so you can see similar things happening in both. So the next tool, I'll just close that. Back in Express, let's say I wanted to remove one of the bees. What we've got is the Remove Object option here. And I could choose a brush size, but I'm just gonna see where my layers are positioned at the moment. Just close that for a second. Just got the one layer. Okay, so this will be interesting. So if I go to Remove Object and then make my brush size really small and just select that bee there, then click Remove. Let's see what happens. Just thinking about it for the moment. And while it's thinking, I'll do the same process in Photoshop. Bring Photoshop across. I'm just going to use my magnifying glass tool, which is one of the last tools in the toolbar. And with the magnifying glass, by default, it's either minus or plus. And if you click the Option key, it gives you the alternative. So mine by default is minus, so it'll go backwards. It'll make it smaller. If I click the Option, I can bring it in a bit bigger. And if I wanted to remove one of those bees, what I would do is go to the lasso tool, select around the bee, and literally don't click any prompt, just click Generate. And what happens now, it uses the background as the prompt. It'll remove the bee and it'll bring in the hair, and it'll replace the bee with the hair. So that should occur any second now. While that's processing, let's see what's happened here. So it's done a reasonable job in terms of removing it in Express. I'm going to click Keep to that and close that panel, and then come back to Photoshop, and you can see it's not done the best job. I'm going to that's better. If I go to my second option, you can see how it's going through that. So you can see some fairly basic tools that are part of Photoshop, adding and taking away images, layering things. You can see all my layers are sitting here in Photoshop as separate layers, so I can open and close them if I want to. With Express, in this case, it hasn't actually created a layer stack. It's all working within the one layer. Now that I've had a bit of a play with adding features and taking away features, I would like to remove the background color. And this is where Photoshop comes into its own. By doing it in Express, if I click on that picture and go to remove background, it'll start to analyze what's the most important part of the picture, and then it'll take away what it thinks is not the most important part. So that's happened almost instantly. And the beauty of this is it's used, as I said earlier, the algorithms of Photoshop to do that process. Now, if I zoom in, you can see how it's literally the little bits of hair are still there, and you can't see any of the yellow, any of the pink background. Let's have a look and see that process in Photoshop. In order to do that in Photoshop, it is a bit of a process. Now, Ben, this is where I want you to take a bit of a focus here, because I'm going to show everyone how I would do it. And I want you to tell me if there's a quicker, a more efficient way of doing this. I'm putting you on the spot, Ben. So this is the way I would do it. This is the way I always remove background in Photoshop. I would go into this tool here, the quick selection tool, which is the fourth tool down from the top. And then when you click on it, there's a button up the top center here called Select Subject. And this was really cool when it came out. Oh, it's actually selecting just that layer. Okay, so I need to repeat that. You can see it's already more complicated than Adobe Express. So what I'm going to do first, I'm actually going to flatten the layers here so it all becomes one image. So I'm going to jump into the layer drop-down menu and flatten that image. So it's all now one layer, so we have that less confusion now. I'm going to click on that quick selection tool and then click Select Subject, and now it's selecting the main part of the subject, just like it did in Express. And what I tend to do now, and this is probably, Ben, where you can show me a more efficient way, but what I tend to do is just copy that, and then I open up a new canvas, a new project, and you can see when you go for a new document, one of the options is to give the background a transparent background. And then I paste it in, and you can see there's no background now, it's all transparent. Now I know there's various ways of doing that, but Ben, open up your camera and microphone and tell me, is there a more efficient way of doing what I've just done?
Well, if it works for you and you're fast at it, it's all good. And it's number one, but I do it a little differently. If you go back to your original file, can we, and then if we go back a few history steps, just when you, so if you go back to where you merged, you flattened your image, just those two steps there. Just click on select variation, should get you there. And the select the text, sorry, Tim, it's got all different.
How far do I go back?
I think instead of clicking on the little selector box beside it, click on the text on the line.
There we go.
Yeah, sweet.
Yep.
So when you merged it, you lost your layers, and that's okay. If you're your boss and you're your client, that's cool. But I've been caught out with that before. So there is a little keyboard shortcut in Photoshop that you have to be taught by, I forget who taught me, but it was kind of like, you get it passed down by the generations. If you hold down Alt, what are you on? You're on a Mac, but if you're on PC, you basically hold down all your keyboard modifiers, so Control, Shift, Alt, or if you're on Mac, Control, Option, on Mac, Command, Option, Shift, hold those down and press E. Hold it. You got to, it's a bit of a tantric kind of move. There you go. So Command, Option, Shift, E is what you're going for, Tim.
Command, Option, Shift, E.
Yes. Yes. Now that has done very little, except it's merged everything up to the top.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So it's giving
good
you
to
all
know.
your protection and flexibility of your layers.
Yeah, nice.
But it's put a merge copy on top.
Cool.
From there, you can pretty much, once you get that, you could just use your contextual bar, that little floating thing. It's underneath your teacher's middle there, and you could hit that remove background button.
Yep.
And that usually does a pretty good night's job. You can see it on the layer mask, but you're seeing all your other layers. So if you just turn off your other layers, there's your PNG there without having to copy and paste it into something else. And if you just export that layer as a PNG, you've got all your flexibility. If someone says, I don't want my nest of bees, you can mask it away, all that kind of stuff.
That's great because, you know, I might want to go back and fix up those extra layers before. Whereas in my process, I've lost that opportunity because unless I go back in history. Ben, wonderful. That's why I knew I'd pick on you because you'd pick up. So I learned a new thing there. So for me, that was Control, Command, Shift, and then E. And then it added a flattened layer up above as the top layer. I love that. That's so cool. But in a PC, it is?
On a PC, it's Control, Shift, Alt, E.
Got it.
On Mac, it's Command, Option, Shift, E.
Excellent. Oh, that's so cool. I love learning new things. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
All right. And of course, if I wanted to then export that as a PNG file in Photoshop, I would go to File and Export. And there's a quick export as PNG option, which isn't going to highlight when I do that. So I'll just do that again. File, Export, quick export as PNG. And then it's naturally going to make that a transparent background because there is a transparent background. So that's going to be the option. In Express, a little bit different. So I've removed the background. Now, if I want to export this, there's up the top right-hand corner, there is a download option. And let's see what the options are here. So I've got again, the standard options, but for some reason it's given me a white background here, even though I did ask to get rid of it. So I'm going to go up to the background color and then choose this option here, which will make sure that there is a transparent background, which is what I'm looking for in this case. Now that I've done that, I can go to the download and it gives me a transparent PNG option. And I could download that and then I've got myself exactly what I'm looking for, the same process in Photoshop. So even though there's different steps involved, it's still doing an amazing job and it's still allowing you to do a lot of the features that are in Photoshop, but in a much simpler way and a more intuitive way, really. So for those who are with us live, this is an opportunity now, if you want to go into the chat and just maybe share something that you've always wanted to know about either Photoshop or Express when it comes to image manipulation. This is probably a good opportunity if you want to share. Otherwise, I'm just going to finish off with a couple of other really cool things and then we'll finish off this session because we've only got about 10 minutes left. So what I'd like to do is I want to make a change to this book. And in this case, I want to have the words I love Adobe in this book, of course. So I'm going to go to the text tool and very simply click add your text and type in I love Adobe. But as I do that, I can scale it and I can position it, but you can see it doesn't quite look right, does it? I'm going to change the font over on the left-hand side to be something a bit thicker. That looks pretty cool. But it still doesn't look right. So there's a little rotation tool that'll help me make it look a little bit more realistic. If I grab that rotation tool, I can then adjust the angle. So now that looks a little bit better. It looks a little bit more like it's on the book. And now I've got a second layer. And you can see the layers up in the top right-hand corner. One thing that I don't think you can do in Express is actually merge the layers to flatten the image. You're stuck with the layers, but when you go ahead and download this, it will do that flattening process in the process of downloading it. Now, I want to show you the similar process in Photoshop, but I want to show you another really cool thing that you've got in Photoshop that you don't have in Adobe Express. And in this case, I'm going to bring in the Adobe Express logo. I'm going to put that onto the book. So to do this, now Ben, I'm going to get you to help me with this as well. I'm going to show you, Ben, the way I would do this, but I'm sure there's a more efficient way of getting an image quickly into as an extra layer in your project. This is the way I would do it. I would literally go and open up the image that I want to bring in. So in this case, I'm going to go and find the Adobe Express logo. So I've got that, and I'm going to select it all by going Control or Command A. It selects it all. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to come back to here and I'm going to paste it. And then I'm going to go Command or Control T, and that allows me to do the manipulation of it anyway. And before I go any further and show you this really cool thing in Photoshop that allowed me to make this look even more realistic, Ben, what would be the more efficient way of getting that in?
I mean, copy and paste is pretty good. Everyone uses it in every application. They know it. The other thing I often do is just grab it from the folder or wherever it's sitting and drag it in. Or if it's in another Photoshop file, you can drag it from the move tool. You can sort of go up and across the bar and then down again. Yeah, drag it in.
All right, I might just do that just as an example. So let me get rid of that layer. I'll just hide it for the moment. And if I go to in this case, I'm using my Finder, which is what we call it in a Mac, but you go to your Explorer on a PC, and I'm just going to go hunting for my images of Adobe products, which is in this folder, and there's Express sitting there, and so it literally just dragging. Is that what you're suggesting? There we go. That's probably a more efficient way. Notice that if I grab that corner handle, I can make it smaller. A few generations ago, you had to hold the Shift key to do that, didn't you, Ben? Now, if I hold the Shift key, it does what it used to do.
In fact, I know a lot of photographers still have to go in and change it back to the worst way, just purely because of their muscle memory. They can't. Photoshop's better, but we're still stuck with our pinkies holding Shift.
Now I'm just zooming in a bit, and I want to show you this really cool tool. This will be one of the last demos for now. I'm just going to go back into that layer. Am I in that layer? Yeah, I'm still in that layer. If we go up to Edit, and this option here called Perspective Warp. This is a really cool tool to be aware of. And I'm going to drag around this layer. So I've got my little handles, and then when I click enter, those handles turn black. And once they're black, I can now warp the perspective of this so that, I could warp it any way I wanted to, but I'm just warping it slightly so it matches the angles of the actual book itself. Should have made this a lot higher res initially, but that's okay. And then click enter. Now if I zoom back out again, you can see how it looks. It looks much more realistic. It looks like it's actually part of the book rather than just an extra layer added on top of it. Now that's not something you can do in Express. So it's probably a good example of how Photoshop is still an amazing tool, and if you've got it, use it, because I've only just scratched the surface on what's possible. And one of the messages we had in Adobe Max today was, even though there's AI and Gen AI and Firefly that does so many things that Photoshop used to be the only way of doing things, it's still like the #1 tool for most designers when it comes to controlling and manipulating. So there's still a lot of value in teaching Photoshop and using Photoshop and getting to understand Photoshop and learning more about it. And that's why we keep developing it. Even though it's been around for a long, long time, it's still one of our most important tools at Adobe, and will continue to be. All right, folks, we've covered a fair bit. We've only got about 5 minutes left. Molly, was there anything in the chat? Was there anyone who wanted me to show anything while they had the opportunity?
No one popped in anything around what you could show them. I feel like they're busy in Photoshop and Express and trying out everything you've been going through. Tim has jumped in there and said about there's the monthly challenge for anyone on the K-12 Express version, which has an October book bento box, which I know a lot of teachers have been loving. And he called out that that's that activity there is actually using very similar features that you've been demonstrating today in Adobe Express. So you could even use that creative challenge to as a great activity for your students to try out your new skills.
Good end of year activity, absolutely. And also these activities remain available, and a lot of activities are available through the guided activity section in the K-12 version. So some really good fun for end of year, but also for back to school. And there will be every month there's a new challenge. It won't be called back to school because it's North Hemisphere focused. They've just had their back to school, but we'll be recommending a few of these activities for back to school. All right, last little tip before we do some little promos. In Photoshop, I just want to show you this one thing that's really cool for teachers. Let's say you've taken 120 photos at a sports carnival, and you've taken them on a DSLR camera, or you've taken them with your iPhone or your Samsung phone, and you really don't have time to go through and compress each individual image. And that's something that's important to do if you want those pictures to be on your school newsletter if it's online. Anytime you want to communicate online, it's really important to compress the images to make the file sizes a lot smaller than what they would have been originally. And of course, Photoshop's the best way to do that. Just a reminder, if you're not aware, if you go to File and then Export and then this option here called Save for Web, that's the best way, it has been for many, many years, the best way to compress a really high res image. Just change the size to something a little bit smaller. 1280 is a really good width for a size, so 1280 pixels for a landscape size, or a 960 pixels for be a good width for a portrait size. But that's not what I want to talk about here. I want to show you a way of doing that with 100 images in just a few seconds. That's right. It's like a batch compression process. And it's as simple as this. You go to File and you go to the Scripts option and then look for this tool called Image Processor. Once you've activated that tool, this window comes up and you just follow the steps. The first step is to select the folder that has all of the pictures. Then once you've selected that folder, the second step, I'll just cancel that. The second step is probably to choose to have the saved versions in the same location, or you can choose a separate folder for them to end up. But this is the most important part here. Change the quality. I recommend it to quality 8, and then adjust the resolution. So 1280 by 960 is a really good res for widescreen, but even if they're a mixture of widescreen and portrait, that'll still do a good job. So don't worry about maybe having two folders, one for landscape, one for portrait. I'd stick with 1280 by 960 as a general formula, and then click Run. And within a few seconds, all those images will be processed, or literally in a few seconds, and will end up in the folder, either in the same folder or in whatever folder you've chosen. And that's a really good practical tip for busy classroom teachers who are busy trying to get lots of images into an online communication tool, whether it's a newsletter or whatever. Don't do that if you wanted to then print those images, because they'll be a little bit blurry. That's to compress those images so they're easily uploaded and downloaded through the internet. Okay, folks, we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping before we finish up. So let's jump back to our slides. And I just want to promote the Adobe Express Classrooms. For those of you who are K-12 teachers, Classrooms is available to most of you. Not all of you have got access to it yet, but it is a wonderful tool. And it's a great way of managing and collaborating with your class in particular subject areas, using either the guided activities that are available in Express or using templates that you've created, but just sharing and then getting the students to create and then reassign to students and then get them to submit to you, and then you can see what they're doing in real time. You can share each other's work. It's a fantastic tool to get to know. It's only recently become available to Australia. I want you to get to know it. We had a webinar 2 weeks ago where we had the whole webinar was based on Adobe Express Classroom. So go back and look at that webinar if you want some more information about it. Speaking of our webinars, Molly's going to put this link into the chat, and I'm just going to jump live into our webinar site. because I want to remind you, as we scroll down through the site, this is the one we're doing right now, so that will disappear in the next 24 hours. But that's okay, because the recording will be down the bottom. This is what we're doing next week, a recap of Adobe Max. And then the week after that, PDF creation with Adobe Express and Adobe Acrobat for busy teachers. And then we're going to have an Adobe Teach Meet. And I haven't fully organized this yet, but Ben, where's Ben? I hope you're available on Thursday, the 20th of November, because Ben's one of our Adobe Creative Educator leaders and innovators. And we're going to be getting a bunch of those leaders and innovators to help run a whole range of sessions on that particular day. And hopefully Ben will be one of them if he's available. But here's where you find the recordings, all the way from February the 5th, which was our first webinar this year, down to last week's one. And last week's one was amazing. It was so cool. I'm just going to click onto the recording now, just so you can see how this works. Privilege, and introduce you to Colleen O'Rourke from Hills Christian Community School in South Australia. What they're doing with Adobe at their school just blew me away. And so I encourage you to have a look at last week's webinar if you haven't had a chance to look at that yet. Just amazing work. So that's how you find the recordings. Let's go back to the slides. And the next slide is our conference site. And just to remind you too, if I click onto our conference site, which Molly's about to put into the chat, you can see that all the incredible workshops and keynote presentations are still sitting there. They're archived in this site forever, maybe. But they're certainly very, very relevant over the next 12 months, and lots of fantastic topics. So go ahead and look at the topic. If you're interested, click the recording, have a look at the recording. It's just a wonderful way to keep up your professional learning. Maybe it's something worth doing during the Christmas break. Who knows? What else would you want to be doing during the holidays than learning more about Adobe tools? Don't answer that. Let's move on to the last slide here. Just keep in mind this is our newsletter site, and Molly's putting that into the link, adobeapacedu.com. A new newsletter will come out next week. Usually at the beginning of every month, we get a new newsletter, and that keeps you up to date with what's happening. So just a reminder, next week's webinar is Adobe Max Recap for Educators. Looking forward to that because so much joy happened. And tomorrow, live, if you've got some time, you can have a look at the sneaks segment in Max. And that is where we're looking at new technologies that we're building for the future. And so many of the new technologies that we have now established in the latest versions have come from sneaks in the past. And I sort of reminisce about some of those brand new technologies that were created maybe 2 or 3 years ago and now established in many of our applications. Thank you for being part of this webinar from the ANZ Adobe Education team. While you complete the feedback form via this QR code or link, note that this weekly webinar series is just one of a range of free events and resources managed by the ANZ Adobe Education team. More information is available on the ANZ Adobe for Education site via adobeanzedu.com. And more specifically for K-12 teachers via adobe.ly/anz-K12-PL. Thanks again for being involved in this webinar. We look forward to seeing you at the next event. Keep being creative. And thanks, folks. I'm just going to stop sharing. I want to thank Molly and James. I want to thank all the people who joined us live. Thank all the people who are watching the recording of this, and encourage you to join us live next week for our recap. And folks, have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye for now.